My name's Ammon Bundy. I'm also here in Idaho, but we've been ranching in that area for 5 generations since 1877. Our whole family ranch was surrounded by 213 armed federal agents. They threatened our lives. They said if we resisted in any way, that it would be another Waco or Ruby Ridge. And if you're familiar with that, that's where the federal government came in and actually killed the individuals in their homes. Um, and that's what their threat was. We didn't know what to do as a family. So, we continue to try to be humble and pray and ask, the Lord for guidance and direction. And, here we're out in the middle of the desert, feeling pretty isolated with a lot of, power, one of the most powerful governments ever known to man surrounding our home, threatening our lives with actual snipers on the hills and MRAMs and helicopters and you name it. And ultimately what happened is, and I got to give credit to my mother and my sisters mostly around the kitchen table there at the ranch house. They got on their computers and began to spread and take videos and record and expose what was happening to my family in almost real time. Ultimately, what happened in just a very short period of time, just a couple days, where thousands of people came to the ranch and basically surrounded my family. And then all of a sudden, rather than us being the ones that were being terrorized and threatened, all of a sudden, and us being in fear, all of a sudden now there was accountability. Now the federal government, their agents that were acting like literally thugs to steal a 140-year-old family ranch. Now all of a sudden they were all gathered in their compound, and they were the ones who were actually seemed to be frightened of the people. And within within actually a couple days, it went from them terrorizing us to them holding up in their compound to them leaving, and they left the entire area, and have never been back since. This was in 2014. And so what we saw the power that people have in being able to defend rights. There was a pattern that we saw, and I believe that it was a pattern that was shown to us by our Creator of how we are to defend our rights. And that is, one man, in this case my father, was not willing to give up his rights. They belonged to him. He knew it, so he claimed them. And then he continued to use them. He even with great threat, even from the federal courts and all of that. He's like, no, this is my ranch. This is my heritage. This is my livelihood. And I'm not giving it up because you want to take it. So he continued to use it. And then when they come to take it, and this is the important part, when they come to try to force and take away his rights, then we called upon our neighbors, and our neighbors responded, and they came quickly, and we didn't have any plan, but they came and ultimately surrounded our family and defended our family's rights. Neighbors to unite together in the defense of rights. And that's what People's Rights is. It is a communication network that unites neighbors in local areas to respond when rights are being threatened. And because we've been so effective at it over these last several months, we have got the attention of the globalists, and they have started to do all they could to isolate us, to get us off of all the platforms such as Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, whatever, all of those platforms. They've tried to purge us off of those. If they can accomplish isolation, meaning basically they can control the narrative and keep us from being able to have a voice, then they'll demonize us. And that's what they're doing, although they have not been successful at isolating us, because we've created our own communication network that's across the United States. And we literally have thousands of people each week joining us. In fact, this last attack, national attack, trying to associate us with with Nazis and so forth, it actually just increased our numbers significantly. Last time I went to the look at how many we had, then it was just a few days later, I looked again and there was almost 2,000 more people in there. And so we're growing by leaps and bounds. And it's simply because people understand that it is not going to be our governments who have been infiltrated by globalists, by the communal idea that individual rights don't really matter, that there's only communal rights. They reject, the people are rejecting that idea. They know better than that. And so they're flocking to us knowing that their government is not going to protect their rights, that the people are going to have to protect them themselves. And in order to do that, they need to have some communication and be able to unite with each other. Do understand the, the premise of what is happening. You do understand this danger of this communal idea that there is community rights. And I would like to emphasize to your listeners that there is no such thing as community rights. There is no such thing as government rights. There's only one type of right, and that is an individual right. Those individual rights came from God. They're inherited to each person, each man and woman, inherited by life. Your life was given to you. You have a right to live in this life in liberty. You have a right to be free. You have a right to travel. You have a right to trade with each other. You have a right to worship and to believe and have free exercise of conscience. These are rights that belong to each person. And it is not the right of any other person to take those away. The only limit that we have on freedom, or should have on freedom, is when someone is trying to infringe upon somebody else's rights. That is the only limit. So we should be free. We should act free. We should remember that we are free, and understand this, and understand that there is no such thing whatsoever of communal rights. That is something that is not existent. There is no such thing as communal rights. It's each individual's. Now, each individual can choose to be part of a group, part of a union, if you will, part of a community, part of a government. They can choose that, and then together they can defend their rights. Together they can even put their efforts and, let's say, purchase property or invent, or they can decide individually to get together and work together on something. And how those rights are recognized within that organization probably is more to do with a contractual thing, but it doesn't change the fact that the individual is the only one that can have rights. There is no such thing. There is no such thing as government rights. There is no such thing as community rights. And let me ask you this: if there is such thing as community rights, then who do they belong to? Who gets to control them? And when you really look on it and look into what I'm saying, you'll have to answer honestly to yourself that there is no such thing as rights that are not belonging to a man or a woman or a child. That's just the way it is. And that is inherent because we are human beings. We are children of God, and God gave us our conscience. We received that conscience from God, and He is the one who made us free. He is the one that gave us our freedom. He is the one that created this earth and placed us on this earth, and He made us equal. I love the Declaration of Independence, where it declares that all men are created equal and that they are endowed by their Creator with unalienable rights, meaning they belong to man and no one should take them away. And that the purpose of government is to secure those rights. That there's no, and the government was created by man who has those rights for the security of those rights. So this idea that the community can all of a sudden be something, an entity that actually is taking those rights or that has priority over an individual's rights is like saying that the creation is greater than the creator, because
Yeah.
man created government and God created man. And so it is almost ridiculous to think that the creation could have more rights or power than the creator.